Today's episode of Keep Diggin is sponsored by Jaeger Funeral Home in Ligonier, Indiana. Serving Northeast Indiana with sensitivity, compassion, and respect for over a decade. My friend Daniel and his staff remind you to keep pushing forward and embrace the faith, family, and the fight of life to just keep digging. You can call them at 260-894-4900 or online at JaegerFuneralHome.com.
Faith, family, fight. Going through the fight of your life?
I don't want to fight.
You're not alone. Keep digging.
Keep digging.
Keep digging. It's time to keep digging, and here's your host, Gran Roberts.
Finally, some sunny weather and dry weather, I might add. Probably the most important part of the whole weather comment is the dry part. Here in Albion, Indiana, at the Keep Digging compound, we've been dealing with rain and all the wet stuff that's associated with the rain. I bet you for pretty close to 2 months, we've had a lot of rain. We've had a lot of downfall. And, we even had one issue last week where one of the drainage pipes overnight, when we had a lot of rain, got clogged. And we had literally nearly standing water about 5 feet from the house. And wow, I was getting a little worried, but to God be the glory. He got that all worked out and we're good. Everything stayed dry here at the compound. And we're really, really thankful for that. The other thing we're thankful for is we had a great episode with Kyle Black and also Chad Miller. I want to thank them for sitting down with us regarding their struggle with porn. We had a great episode. I feel like we had a great talk, but I also had some females contact me after the show. And it was interesting to see that there's a whole other side to this that we actually didn't cover during that show. There's a lot of victims on the side of porn abuse and porn addiction, rather, not abuse, but porn addiction. And many times more than not, it's the women, the wives that suffer. And they suffer in a very unique way that us men, especially as Christian men, we don't see that because, often us Christian men, we have wives that are probably more forgiving and they're just amazing people. And what I'm finding out is the women that are stuck in relationships with men that maybe aren't the nicest of people, or maybe are dealing with it and really causing a lot of physical, mental abuse that we didn't really cover last week. That to me, there's a story there. There's a story that's needing to be told. I had a number of women reach out to me, but have yet to have someone say, you know what, I'll come on the show and share with you my experiences. Kind of tell you how it affected me. Man, I'd love to talk with you. We can also take steps to protect your identity, of course. But please be praying about that. And if you're interested, contact me. We'd love to give God the glory in this occasion and maybe even help inspire someone that's dealing with this at this moment in time. Contact me at 260-205-7318 or Keep Diggin today. That's Keep Diggin, Diggin, no G, today at gmail.com. Sponsorships are also very important to help keep the Keep Diggin podcast going and to help us reach a larger audience. You too can reach us at that same number, 260-205-7318, if you too would like to support the show, and you can do so in a variety of ways. Sponsorships are available, and they will be available both throughout the podcast, on the podcast, and also through our social media outlets. Today's episode is being brought to you by our friends at Jaeger Funeral Home in Ligonier, Indiana. Daniel Blevins and the staff there, all making this possible. And we really appreciate their support here at Keep Diggin. You too can support the show by sharing each episode on your social media outlets. You can find our episodes wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, and Spotify, just to name a few. Also be sure to hit the subscribe button. We would really, really appreciate that. Also, leave us a rating or a review, or maybe both. Either one would be great. Those really help us get moved up in the search rankings within those outlets and allows us to reach a greater audience here at Keep Diggin. Guys, today's episode is going to be an interesting one because it's not going to be our normal Keep Digging episode. Now, what we're going to do today is I'm going to kind of give you a sneak into my life, if you will. You know, for many, many years, I was a disc jockey. I was a DJ. I was a newsman. And one of the first jobs, actually the first job I had, was at a little radio station in Ligonier, Indiana. Later moved to Warsaw, Indiana. It was called Cow Country 102.7 WLNB. And it was at this station that, I got to do news. I got to do sports. And occasionally, every now and then, I get a Friday night or maybe it's a Saturday. I get to do, an hour or two of country music, which was kind of a treat for me. But during this time, actually right before this time, I made a friend. And his name was Matt Gaff. And Matt and I, and also, my brother and his brother Nick, we did a lot of things together. We spent many, many miles in the Mattmobile, and we made a lot of memories. I really enjoyed spending a lot of time with Matt. And Matt actually got a job working at Cow Country probably about 7 weeks before I did. I thought, wow, what a great job. What a cool job. And I had been on the radio team, middle school, high school, somewhere in there. Just about all the way through. And I thought, man, this would be a great way for me to put those skills to use. And, when you're 17 years old, summer before my senior year in high school, what a great way to earn some gas money and also to kind of put those skills to use. Matt and I, we were working there, and Matt was hosting the gospel show, and he had way many more hours than I did, but he also started to kind of create a following, if you will. And he hosted that with a gentleman by the name of Gordon Hurd. Now, keep in mind, at this point in time in my life, I hated church. I came from a very legalistic background, and I wanted nothing to do with it, if I'm just being honest. And to be around them was great because, obviously Matt's my friend, but I kind of got to see a different side of faith, if you will, because it wasn't what I was used to. I got to know Gordon. Gordon was great. I got to see their fans come in and out. And it was just something different about him. It really was. And at this point in time, I'm getting ready to head off to college, heading, through that senior year. I've gotten to, I'll be honest with you guys, I started getting a chip on my shoulder. I started to really like the attention. And, the Bible tells us there's pleasure in sin for a season. Man, that is so true in this case. Because it's something that we all, at different points in our life, we all desire it. There's certain things that we want to do, that we have goals that we just want to kind of push through. And don't get me wrong, some of those things are great. It's good to have goals, but when you start really partaking in the attention, if you will, and you start really basking in and I hate to say fame, but when you're 17, 18 years old, and you start getting that attention, you start looking at it that way. The attention at that age can really, it can make you make some bad choices. Ephesians 2:3 says, among whom we all once lived in the passions of our flesh, carry out the desires of the body and the mind, and were by nature children of wrath like the rest of mankind. Naturally, we want certain things. We want, in my case, I wanted to become a big disc jockey. I wanted that fame. I wanted that notoriety. And long story short, guys, after probably 6 months, Matt and I had a falling out, and I feel bad about that now. Yeah, I wish I could tell you it was this big important thing that, we disagreed on, but truthfully, it really wasn't. It was childish behaviors and jealousies and whatnot. It really wasn't a big deal. And when I think about it now, at the time it was a big deal, but I think about all those years past, and I wish it was different. And what I'm really thankful for now is that Matt and I, we get all this time to kind of make up for the past. And that's been a real blessing. But at the time, we're young. And when you're young, you have some jealousies, you have some insecurities, and it just gets frustrating. I don't hold anything against Matt, and I hope he doesn't hold anything against me. I'm pretty sure that's all good. because, Matt has become, again, one of my best friends. And man, what a blessing that's been, especially this point in time in my life. I've had a lot of health issues that we're going to be talking about. I've kind of hinted at them, talked a little bit about them in other episodes. We'll be going deep into them here in the coming future. But, man, Matt's been right there. And it's been such a blast getting to connect with him because, we went from not being friends at all for like the last 23, 24, 25 years to him showing up at church one day. Just prior to this, Matt's brother Nick and I had connected. He's been going to church with us as well. He was on my Fight Club squad for a couple chapters. And Nick's just a great guy, good dude. He told me, he goes, "Hey, Matt's going to start coming to church." And, I started seeing Matt, and I so badly wanted to say something to him, but I didn't want to kind of bring up any old memories. So I thought, well, I'll just kind of hang back. If I see him, I'll say hey. But I just try to be respectful, to both him and, his mom and the rest of his family. Great people. And one day he shows up at a men's prayer meeting. And I thought, man, I just got to just tell him how happy I am to see him there. And just, throw my arm around him and just try to start this anew. And you know what? Man, what a blessing that's been. I've got to reconnect with my friend, a guy that is like family to me. And we've got to not only connect between the two of us, but our families have, our kids have, our boys have. And what a pleasure it's been to see Brady connect with his son Liam and get to go through, a program at church recently. Epic is what it's called. It's like a soccer and art camp. And to see how God is using, programs like that to help connect our own kids and to give them the kind of faith that maybe we didn't have, the type of faith I know I didn't have at the time. I didn't really grow up in church, and I grew up with a very legalistic background with church, but I didn't really go a lot. And so to be able to not only provide my son that, but to be able to do that, with one of my best friends and to help provide him, people around him and to connect with them like Matt's son and many others, it's been such a great, great blessing. It wasn't that long ago that I was in the hospital and Matt called me and goes, "Hey, is there anything you need?" And I said, "Well, I'll let you know." He's like, "All right, just call me. If you need me to come pick you up, I'll come pick you up. If you need someone to come sit with you, I'll come sit with you." I'm like, and of course at the time you don't want to put anybody out. That's the initial reaction. Then I'm thinking, I'm like, you know what? This would really help save my wife a trip because she's really had a rough go of things with me being sick all the way down in Indy. So I called him and I said, "Hey, Matt, would you mind picking me up?" And without hesitation, Matt said, "Certainly, when I get off of work, I'll drive down." And guys, we had a great, great drive back. Unfortunately, I found out he's a Marvel fan, not a DC fan. But, that's okay. We'll pray for him, please. But we had a good time catching up. We had 2.5 hours in the car of just talking, just sharing things. And, I went on after Cow Country. I went on to, work at WBTU in Fort Wayne, 93.3, Federated Media, Froggy 106.7, among others. And Matt went on to another station. He actually ended up in the service, and he was a medic. And Matt served his country proudly for many years overseas. And we had different life experiences. But it's really cool to see how our life experiences all brought us back to the same place through Jesus. And it's so cool when I look at where we were and how broadcasting kind of helped shape both of our faiths. I didn't really have a faith at that point in time. I hated church. But you'll find out in this talk how, radio actually played a very, very important role in the development of my Christian faith. And that I'm really thankful for that, because while it took me to some very rough patches of my life and bad decisions, it helped plant the seed and helped get me to where I am now. And with Matt, he had a foundation to build off of. And granted, we're not perfect. We make decisions, we make mistakes. But the important thing is we grow from it. And I've seen how it's allowed, how broadcasting played a role in helping Matt grow and communicating and talking and sharing his faith. It's allowed him to become the Christian he wants to be and the Christian he's working on being. It really played a role in that in our lives. And we're going to talk about that. There's no hard-hitting subjects today, topics, but we're actually going to talk about our time in radio. We're going to talk about how it shaped our faith. And we're also going to talk about how we overcame some of these, childish jealousies and pride. Pride is such a evil tool that the enemy uses to really bring us down and to separate us. We're going to talk about those things, and I hope you see the growth. I hope you see the glory, and I also hope you see the love that the two of us have for each other, our families, and how much we just really, really enjoy this time together. So, guys, let's do this. Let's dig.
It's time now. The Dig.
And it is time to dig. Guys, welcome to the Roberts Family Compound. Today, we are going to be talking about life, how life affects our faith, and quite often it's what we do for a living in our lives that can have the greatest effect. And pride can be a very ugly, crazy thing. It can kind of leave you to feeling like you're Superman and really you got nothing to stop the bullets. And we're going to talk about that with my friend Matt Gaff. Yeah, he's my lifelong friend. He's a Fight Club brother. I go to church with him. And Matt and I have a history where we both worked in radio. Isn't that right, Matt?
That's right. We did in Ligonier. I did the gospel, which was awesome. And you got to do the cool, fun country in the morning.
Well, we're going to find out that might have been a bad idea for me in a lot of ways.
Are you saying we should have switched, I think?
Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah, quite possibly. Matt and I worked at Cow Country 102.7 in Ligonier, and it was kind of a fun time in our lives. We're both in high school. Matt, were you a junior at the time?
Yes, I was a junior when I started with a car and a bank account, which is always trouble with a high schooler.
See, those are two more things I didn't have at the time. The car, the Matmobile. Oh man, I remember the Matmobile.
It was a hand-me-down from my grandmother. It was we tried to drag race at one time and it did not work out well. It actually killed itself, and the Sunfire beat me, which is also a sad statement, if you know.
But a lot like Lazarus, it's like you got raised from the dead.
Oh, it
right?
did. Oh, that thing could not die. I think it was John. I think Christ came down, blessed it, and said, "This will survive."
At this time. You were a junior, I was a senior. I think it was the summer heading into my senior year when I started working there. And prior to that, I know myself, I'd been on the radio team at school, but let's face it, you're just reading news. I mean, you don't have a mic in front of you. You go into a room. So that was really all I was used to. And then, we get into radio. And it was fun to be able to do that and have someone like yourself that I could work with and you just share that experience with, because so often you get in those kind of environments where it's something new and you're looking at new equipment, reel-to-reel machines, high tech stuff,
Right. Well, and see, I was doing the act. I was in drama, so I was used to audience reactions. So if I tell a joke or something, I always get feedback.
Oh yeah.
You don't in radio. Well, occasionally if the phone lights up because you said something that you shouldn't have. But other than that, I found that was more difficult because I couldn't get the feedback that I needed. So it's like, oh, did that joke bomb or was it good? I had to wait until I got to a concert or seen somebody at church, and then, which my mom went to the same church, which was also not something you always want your mom to hear. Is you shouldn't have said that. You were a little off on that. It's like,
oh yeah,
Roger Pastor, I got you.
Well, see, at this point in time, I wasn't in church. At this point in time, it sounds like you were going to church, right?
Right. Yes. I was actually going to Millersburg Church of Christ with my mom and my brother and sister. And the radio really helped me keep me focused on Christ and making sure that I did the right thing, especially in radio. You want the music, and you want to go to the concerts, and you don't always want to go to the right concerts and meet the right people. And
Sure.
so, I think at that point, Christ was making sure that I stayed focused and stayed like I needed to with going to church and looking for, someone to spend the rest of my life with who had a good background and had the same views that I had at that current time, not what I was looking for.
That might actually be next door to the radio station.
It was, in fact.
See, I remember this. I remember you looking out the window. Amy, your wife.
Yes.
Her parents lived there. So occasionally you'd see him walk out the back door.
I would. There was times where she'd be, running around outside and in the backyard. And it's like, that's when I had the call in, like, do you know there's dead air? I think the DJ may have passed out. No, it wasn't that. I was just staring out a window at my future wife. And I probably should have been a little more focused on work, but
at least you're on the gospel show. You had a lot of people praying for you at that point.
Oh, I did. I think so.
Yeah.
I felt it. I'll tell you that much.
And they're a little more forgiving. I found that out.
They are. Yes, they are a lot. But they like to make suggestions, which is really nice. They're like, you should really play. I have not heard this song in a long time. Could you play it? And it's like, as soon as I can find that CD, I will. But, back then they didn't have, the large databases like they do now online.
Oh, yeah.
We had to get them by CDs. So if somebody had, gone to Walmart, picked up a CD, it's like, you probably got it before me because we didn't stay up on that. It was, we were always probably about 6 months behind most of the time, unless we knew the artist and then we had it in,
You remember cart machines?
I do. It, those 8 tracks are just awesome.
Oh man. I remember looking at a cart going, what in the world? Like my dad had an 8-track player, but
yeah,
I never had to play one. And I'm like, this is kind of crazy. When you live in a world of CDs,
right. Well,
not even a thought.
There's a couple of times, we had to do reel to reel. So, I mean, you're like trying to find this piece of tape on where you were supposed to set it. Then you had to move your hands around to try to get it right into place. It's like, it took a little time.
It's amazing how the advent of MP3 players have changed that whole process.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
well, especially with downloads now, someone calls in a request, you just type it right in and then boom, there's a song, you've got it. Back then it's like you're digging through, CDs and you're going off your memory and you're just praying that Amazing Grace lasts just a couple more seconds so you can get that CD in.
Oh, yeah. Well, I tell you what, we all, if you're not in radio, you really wouldn't know about this, but guys on radio have the song. And when I say the song, it's like your, for lack of better words, it's your potty song. It's the song you put on when you need a little extra time.
Yeah, luckily with the gospel, it was a lot of them were potty songs because they do a lot of intermissions on them and stuff like that. So there were some short songs, but we didn't have those 2 minutes. Most of them were like 3.5. Luckily, I found a 5-minute one.
Okay, good deal.
Mother's song was mine because I was like, not only did I play that, Mom would be like, "Oh, that's for me." I'm like, "And for me too."
Oh man, my song was "Friends in Low Places," the extended cut.
Exactly.
We're talking like 7 minutes.
Oh, that's a good break.
Oh,
right
it's
there.
a very good break.
That's an order of pizza. Wait for it to come in.
Oh yeah, and tip the driver.
And tip the driver. Exactly.
Oh, yeah. A lot of my friends that rock radio, they would play "Stairway to Heaven."
Oh yeah.
So like you said, sometimes you hear a song, you're like, yeah, this is my song. Please know that it could be that the disc jockey is need a break, so to speak.
Exactly.
So it's funny how we can look at these things and we can know what's going on behind the scenes, what's probably taking place. But there's a lot of things in our lives that went on that maybe people wouldn't know. People wouldn't understand at the time. And quite honestly, I didn't understand at the time. You were hosting the gospel show with Gordon Hurt.
Correct. Yes.
And you're really getting involved with the different bands. I know Gold City. I want to say the Hensons. What's the name I remember? Yeah,
I had gone to a couple of their concerts. We had set up some booths and stuff like that. Met a lot of our listeners through there. We had a lot of concerts also in Syracuse, and we'd just go Goshen, just the local area, probably about 3 counties of where we would go. Occasionally we would go to Fort Wayne just because a lot of the listeners would go to Fort Wayne, even though the radio station obviously couldn't broadcast that far.
It was a real niche gospel market that if you were into that kind of music, those fans would go anywhere.
Correct. Yeah, it's not like they had XM radio, that wasn't around.
Oh, yeah, true.
So a lot of them would wait and set their clocks for our channel just to kick it on there so they could have that 3-4 hour playing so they could listen to it. Because a lot of the times those people didn't have the songs. And so that was the time they could hear different bands and ones that they liked and then hopefully remember them and then go out and buy them.
Definitely. Definitely. And they were very loyal, if my memory recalls. And even on the countryside, you'd have fans that would bring by, and advertisers too, they'd bring by treats. There was a lady that operated the Blue Onion out of, I want to say Middlebury, that brought us all cow country mugs.
Yes. Yeah.
I remember that. I think I have that mug around here somewhere, but I couldn't tell you where.
I think mine got somehow destroyed on the way to Germany when I was in the Army. I lost some things in transit from there. So some other pots and pans that my wife was more concerned about than I was.
Oh, sure. While you were going through that, you were surrounded by a lot of good people, a lot of faith, a lot of good examples, good environment. Myself at the station, I was surrounded by good people at the station. There's some elements of ownership that was a little toxic from time to time, and everybody's got their faults. So, I'm not trying to throw them under the bridge there, but when you're 17, you're like, you don't know how to manage some of that. So I just kind of went about doing what I did. Didn't really think much about it. Tried to learn as much as I could, much like yourself. And later on, I ended up getting a job at WBTU, Fort Wayne. And what I found out, and honestly, I hated church. Before, I've been saved now for 20 years. I'm very, very happy of that. Proud of that fact.
As you should be. I mean, that's a big accomplishment, to be honest.
Oh, definitely. And if I'm being transparent, it's really the last 5 years I've really embraced it and really used it as a weapon. But at this point in my life, coming from the church environment I came from, it was very legalistic, very rules-based. And let's face it, when you're 17, 18 years old and you grew up in the era of grunge and alternative, you don't like a lot of rules. You kind of go against the grain.
Right. With radio on our side, there's a lot of rules,
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that there is so much rules because you have time rules, you've got so many commercials you've got to hit with so many sponsors that you've got to do. And I think with having the job there, it allows you to get very structured, but yet have it fun, and that helps now, with my son and everything else, with some of my past jobs, having that structure, but allowing that fun to be in there and having it mandated. And also because if you don't have fun, no one's going to listen.
Oh, very true. Very true. You got to give them a reason to tune in.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I can have a smiling face, but you can't see it on radio.
Well, see, speaking of fun, before I talk about to you, I'll tell you, there was a couple times where I would fill in for you on the gospel show, which, I mean, I've already told you at the time I was in church, and matter of fact, I kind of hated church, but which really makes that kind of odd. The owner really didn't ask me if I was a Christian. And when you're in high school, it's you're a DJ.
Someone to fill in. So,
yeah.
And that's how they looked at it. And, but I think Christ uses that sometimes to plant seeds, which I believe in this case he did.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. Because, at the time, it was a cool job. Playing gospel music wasn't something I thought I'd ever be doing. But there was times where I'd be filling in, and what would happen is, we had 3 CD decks. And decks 1 and 2, you typically have the song that's playing and the song that's going to be coming up next. And you had a third deck for really anything, but on channel 3 on the board, I would always put it in audition, which means you can listen to it through your headphones off air. Well, this one particular day, I was listening to Marilyn Manson's Beautiful People while I was playing gospel music. Not a good combination. And
well, Christ does love everyone. We're supposed to love everybody, all the beautiful people.
All the beautiful people. Good point. Good point. Problem was the people of the gospel show weren't exactly happy about this. Brian come in, our boss, manager, he came in and said, you might want to turn channel 3 off. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's an audition. And I look down and it's not.
Yeah.
And I'm like, 10-4. I really didn't know how to recover from that one. So you just kind of go on like, nothing happened. Now that phone did start lighting up then.
Yeah, exactly. that happened.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So, apparently at the time I'm like, well, it was a network thing, frequencies,
Well, of course, because they have Marilyn Manson with country. That's one of the feeds.
Oh, totally. Totally. But you were right when you said it planted a seed, because up until this point in my life, I thought church was only the legalistic way the only way I'd ever seen and knew.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I get around, guys like yourself and Gordon Hurd, and Gordon, man, what a great guy.
Oh yeah. He opened up a lot of the doors as well with the concerts and everything else, adding that second person in there.
Sure.
Really helped too with talking and really getting the message out there that, hey, this music's out here. It's different than what you're listening to with the country. It's got that Christian background, but it's got that country sound that a lot of the listeners liked. And so I think with his introduction, it really did help the program.
If my memory serves me correct, he was also a promoter. So he was literally in with all these bands.
Well, that's what got us into some of the concerts itself, was he was promoting the concerts or promoting things within the concert. And so that gave us a door in that we didn't have to necessarily pay to be there.
Gotcha.
A lot of times, a lot of the radio stations would have had to pay to get in there.
True.
Like WFRN, stuff like, those particular radio stations had to pay to be present. And luckily we didn't have to do that. So that kind of helped us grow it even more.
Oh, very much so. And I think that added to, the fans being so loyal, because they could come up and they could shake your hand.
Exactly. It puts a face to the radio voice, which, may or may not disappoint people. I don't know.
You and I both have been told we have faces built for radio.
Exactly. Or comedy. Apparently that's about it. I cannot do drama.
Well, I'll say on more than one occasion, Matt, you made me laugh. So,
that's true. And same here.
When I went to BTU, it was like a different experience for me. Okay. When I went there, I'm 18, I'm just starting college. They had a refrigerator just loaded with alcohol, and they looked for a reason to throw a party. I mean, the next door neighbors, dog sitters, best friends, bodyguards, wife might have had a birthday. And because of that, we would throw a party.
Oh, of course.
At the station, plenty of alcohol. TJ McKay at the time would bring what was known as Grandma McKay's secret recipe.
Of course.
When you're 18, man, dude, that is just not a good environment. And it really doesn't help introduce you to faith of any kind.
No.
It's a huge distraction. One thing I want to ask you, when you were doing the gospel show, were you connected in a way where you're like, man, this is building my faith? Was it influencing you, or were you like any other teenager? I'd rather be over here doing this, not here.
I would say probably both. When I was playing the music, it really did, fill a gap, because a lot of times, it was on Wednesday night, so I didn't get to go to church then. I would do it Sunday night, didn't do Sunday morning. So I would go to church, but then it just kind of filled that gap of some of the messages that I might have missed, from the church. But on the other hand, I'm 17 with a car, and I'm looking at one of my friends who's, living it up in the morning show. Like every kid wants to be the morning show host.
Sure.
And I'm at night playing gospel music, which I like. But, at that point, I'm like, man, I really want to go to the concerts. I want to go to the Tim McGraw concerts. I want to go where there's other type of, people that are having what looks like more fun. And it is fun.
Sure.
But it's not necessarily the right way you should be living.
And the Bible tells us that there's pleasure and sin for a season. And I'm not saying it's a sin to go to concerts. But when you're 17, you're not really just there for the music.
No, of course not.
No. You're there to meet somebody. You're there to check people out. And in our cases, it's like some of that pride in a bad way.
Exactly. Yes.
It starts to try to shape you and define you.
Well, and with us, we were on the radio, so we already had a mindset that, we were kind of already above some other people because it's like, hey, I'm on the radio. You should check it out, and that leads into, a lot of pride issues because, especially when you fall, then it hurts even more. It's like I was on the radio and now I'm nothing, you really have to be careful of that.
Oh, it is. That senior year was tough for me for that very reason, because while I had a lot of pride in what I was doing, and to be clear, the Bible doesn't say pride's always a bad thing. Galatians 6:4 says each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. So you can have pride in what you do. The problem with myself is I do that, but now I try to set myself on a pedestal, and that's easy to do when you're that age. You don't have a lot of life experience. You don't have a lot of, discipline. Probably a good idea.
Exactly. Well, and then you've got to look at with radio, there's awards. I mean, there's local, regional, national awards. Not that, we were going to win any type of national award, but other awards that are around there, recognitions that can be had in being on the radio. We just was, we were fighting for, trying to get some sort of a reward. And obviously we didn't, but we found the reward in Christ now.
Very
and
much
looking
so.
back on it, it's like, he was there guiding us so that way later on we're where we need to be.
Very much so. Very much so. And I'm really thankful for that, because the experience at Cow Country on those, very few nights that I got to fill in were really helpful to me, because even when I wasn't filling it, I was around you guys. And a lot of times you guys would come in right after I got done doing my 5 o'clock news, and I'd hang around. And I remember thinking, man, this is such a different environment than what's going on in the morning show. It seemed more pleasant. It seemed more positive. That was a huge thing. I remember walking away from work many nights when John Lutt would come in to do the weather. Oh, I love that guy. And I remember talking to Gordon, talking to yourself, and going away, and I just knew there was something different. There was something there, but I wouldn't allow myself to really enjoy it.
Right.
So fast forward to BTU, all these parties. It just wasn't good. There was one day I drove home, and I'll be honest with you, man, I don't know how I got home. Wow. I know I drove, apparently, but it wasn't good. And coming from a father whose father was a raging alcoholic, man, I came in, I sat down on my beanbag in my bedroom, and my dad was already in there watching some TV. It's one of the things Dad did. He always hung out in our bedroom, and like he was a kid, because I think it's something he never had.
That's true. Well, it also get time away from Mom.
Bleed the fifth on that one. Quite possible.
I'm not sure I do that either. I'm not sure.
But he knew right away. He asked me, he said, who gave it to you? And he was talking about the alcohol. And I fessed up to him. I realized radio was doing something to me. And really, I knew, that senior year in high school, Mr. Maggot pulled me to the side, our government teacher, and said, Gran, I don't understand you. You're walking around with a chip on your shoulder from time to time, and you got all these academic awards last year. And I thought, I'm going to enjoy having this guy in class. But this year, it's just like you're just getting by. And I'm disappointed, and you're at risk for failing government, which, as you know, that means you don't graduate.
Right. Yeah. It was a prerequisite to graduate.
Oh yeah. So that scared me. I ended up passing with a C, but that whole year, man, it just changed who I was. And it sure did not help when I went to college and I went to go work at BTU, because now what discipline or what little discipline I had is completely out the window.
Right. And I think the difference was, my parents were divorced. So, I was with my mom. My dad, I was only every other weekend.
Sure.
So what was really nice was Mr. Pounds, the mass media.
Oh, yeah.
He kind of brought myself and my brother in. And so I was able to do not only the TV show there for the announcements, but do a lot of other projects too, and keep me occupied and not have those outside interference coming in. So I think with having, a teacher there to really guide you towards some sort of a media, whether it radio or video, it really helps. And I think that's where, unfortunately, you didn't have that guidance.
No, really all I had at that time, I had my art because I'm a designer by trade. I had Mr. Reader, but when I was doing my radio thing, that was kind of out the window, unfortunately. And that's just, man, I always thought if I could just do this the right way, which is actually why we're sitting here now. I kind of feel that this is our way that we could incorporate Christ and faith and still kind of get to use those same, talents and treasures, so to speak. At this time, I had a WBTU staff jacket on. And at the time, WBTU is located right beside of Key Lanes, and any bowling alley off of Goshen Road has a bar. And as long as I had the jacket on, no one questioned me. Go in there and have what I thought was a good time. And in the meantime, I'm find myself living a lie. That's how I'm starting to feel it, because it's not me.
Right.
It's not who my dad raised, who
but
my
it's
mom
not
raised.
Natural.
No. It was like you were trying to play a role.
Exactly.
It just got to be too much. I wasn't happy. Now all of a sudden, the thing that brought guys like you and I a lot of joy, we had a lot of fun in radio.
Oh, definitely. A lot of free pizzas.
A lot of free pizzas. That's right, man.
Thank you, Pizza Hut.
Oh, man. I had this one lady used to bring me Arby's every Saturday night.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it would just show up. I'm like, this is great.
Yes. But
now all of a sudden, I wasn't there. I didn't have a friend in the business like I had connected with you guys at Cow Country. I'm in college. I'm getting introduced to a lot of new ideas, and I'm just miserable. And so I gave up. I gave up radio, and I did that to work out of high school doing art, because I knew that was one thing that would just kind of help me stay grounded.
Correct. Yes.
That seemed natural, like what you were saying. That seemed like it was me. I mean, we're recording the show here, my art desk that I've had since I was 16 sitting here. I mean, it's been with me through all this. It's always been a part of my life. It's been the one part of my life that's never let me down and never, I don't know, it's never caused me to make any bad decisions. But I think it was a tool that Christ used to pull me in.
Well, definitely, because you did a lot of art for the yearbooks, for a lot of the stuff in the school. And introduced me to comics as well. I mean, you influenced a lot on me, except for the fact that now you're DC and I'm Marvel.
It's true. We all grow up at some point, Matt.
And you'll get there eventually.
Well, let's not forget the ever popular Stickman.
I was just going to say, I saw some at my mom's. I still have those.
You got Stickman?
I still have Stickman, yes.
For those of you out there, Matt, why don't you explain what Stickman is?
Well, Stickman was my attempt at comics. My drawing skills is very subpar compared to Gran's. So the only way I could entertain someone would be stick figures. So I decided to do Stickman because it was easy for me to draw. And then I was going to make it complicated with dialect. So there was a lot of conversations going on, but unfortunately not a very good drawing of anything. But there was some interesting battles. You got Twig growing from the side of his head. So that's my version of Groot before it even was popular with some people.
Oh, copyright, Matt Gaff.
Exactly. Well, that's why he was Twig, not Groot. And he could talk more than just I am Groot. So we're good.
True. Very true.
I did look into some regulations before I started naming things.
Oh, now I had art that kind of helped keep me grounded. When you left Cow Country, when you left the gospel show, what kept you grounded, or what got you to that point? Like, what was your life like?
Well, after Cow Country, obviously, I went to work at another radio station. Did the gospel as well, just on a Sunday for like 2 hours.
Okay.
Everything else was just doing normal radio, and that just got me through my senior year. What I was going to do was go to college to be the engineer, actually work on these circuits and everything else, because I found that more fascinating than sometimes being on the radio, just fixing things. Plus,
Sure.
I was a huge Star Trek, Star Wars thing. So it's like, oh yeah, I could like build things, like when things get shot up, Jordy's like fixing things, like I'm going to patch this and make it work. And so I thought, oh, that'd be fun. And until the math came, and then it was just not me. But
math ruins everything, man.
It does. And now I work at Turtletop and I do math for compliance, but it's okay. It's not that bad. That's what I keep telling my son. It's not that bad. It's math. But
see, Christ is hoping you grow in that area.
He is. What helped me through all of that was, dating my wife and then marrying my wife. She kept me real grounded within Christ and with church and everything else. She hadn't gone to a lot of churches. She went to Wawaka's church. And so she didn't have a lot of experience, but was very interested in it and wanted to know more. And so that kind of helped me stay involved with trying to help her along in her faith. And that's where we kind of got connected with it until we got into the military, and then in which case it kind of got put off to the side. It's just the way the military is a lot of times.
Sure.
So, you're trying to bond with people that you're going to be eventually hoping that they like pull you out of stuff if you need to.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So you try to bond, and sometimes, talking about sins and forgiveness doesn't always play real well.
It's funny you bring up your wife, because, man, my story is very much like that with Jamie. And then she finds herself dating this former jock, disc jockey.
I was going to say.
Little clarification there. Although I am a 2-time bowling state champion, I might add that. Actually, that kind of goes against the whole pride thing we're talking about, right?
A little bit, but that's all right. It's all right. You can brag a little bit.
She found herself, and she invited me to church. She says, "Hey, I'd love you to come sit with me." And Matt, I don't know about your experience with Amy. I would guess, since you already had Christ in your life, it was probably a little smoother. But man, myself, I looked at Jamie. I'm like, oh, you just ruined a really good situation. Like, that was the last place I wanted to be.
Well, because you knew, though. The difference is knowing that you're doing wrong.
Yeah.
And asking for, forgiveness rather than not knowing and continuing doing it. I mean,
very much so.
You need to know the difference.
Oh, yeah. And at this point, I knew there was something going on. That's why I got out of it. But yet I still kind of had that mindset where I just wanted to do my own thing.
Well, it's a comfort.
Yeah. Oh, man. Complacency is like the best comfort and the worst distraction that the devil could put in your life.
Oh, yeah.
Man, that was tough. But luckily, the Lord puts a beautiful woman in a lot of guys' lives like ourselves, and you can't tell them no. You don't want to tell them no.
Well, you do, and then you get in trouble.
So. Well, true. Especially after 20 years of marriage, but that's a whole other story.
That's true. There's a sheet on the refrigerator with all the marks. I'm still trying to erase some of those.
Might have to get a new refrigerator, Matt.
Yeah, or a bigger one.
There you go. There you go. I went to church, and I realized it was different than what I had grown up with, because I was so, I don't know. I don't want to say I was blind to the fact that church is different, because, growing up, when we went to West Noble, we had Campus Life. We had the guys like Kevin Moore that was involved in some of the other church youth ministries that were around. And that was definitely not something that the church environment I grew up in had. They didn't even have a kids program. I thought church is something you did when you apply for your AARP card. I hate to say it, but
well, coffee is a little cheaper then.
It is, and easier to get.
Yeah, it's true. Yes.
A lot of times they'll bring it to you, but it just was so foreign to me. And when I saw that it was different, I thought, wait a minute. It did remind me of our days in radio.
Mm-hmm.
Because the one commonality that Gordon had was he was Southern. And my family's all Southern. So I guess in my mind, I made the assumption that he was more like them, but yet I was comfortable with him. But how he was different was, the church I grew up in, they didn't allow instruments. It was voice only and very legalistic. I mean, a lot of great people in church, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to badmouth them, but that should have been my first sign that, well, wait a minute, there's something a little different over here. And I think out of fear of disappointment, I disappointed my mom. Yeah, I didn't really question that. But man, when you see this side of it, it's so different.
Well, I think with the radio, bringing it back that way, with some of the concerts were in different churches. So, as a young person, I got to see different types of basically the same faith, but different types of churches. So I could kind of see which one fit where I was at and which one was based on biblical and some based on possible snake running around type of deal. Not that I ever saw that, but when the candidate came out, sometimes I was like, oh, I had kind of close on a couple of those, but it's all right. But it allowed me to see different types of denominations that kind of see what fits my lifestyle, where I was at in my faith. And that's what helps me now, is because I've actually got a chance to go to some of those other churches.
Now, would you say that your time in radio, where you're at now, would you say that it has molded you in a positive way, or are there still some things that creep up from time to time that you think, man, that you're always working on? Because I know we're all human.
I would say that it did mold me in a positive way. Definitely because of the way I'm able to talk in public. I have a confidence when I talk. As long as I have some knowledge, I can pretty much spit off for about an hour and a half to somebody if I need to. But it gave me the confidence to read what I want to read and talk to somebody and say, hey, am I right about this? I'm reading the New Testament, Galatians 5. Does this say like exactly what I should be, what I think it is, and have that confidence to press somebody to see what they think. It helped throughout the military to get me better rank. It helped me in my job now because I can be more confident talking to somebody and not have to worry about, okay, what do they think of me? Or, are they judging me right now? Because I had the radio, I was used to hearing or having people hear me, without feedback for quite some time, unless they called in on bad occasions. So, you get that confidence being up on the stage in the high school, and the drama helps. I had the spotlight on me, but, you still have to memorize lines, but sometimes you have to ad lib because, your friend next to you forgets a line. So how you pull yourself out of that? So I think, with the media, it really helped me get out of my shell so that I'm not stuck in a corner, because I could have easily just been quiet, shy, reserved. Sadly, I'm not.
No, sadly for your wife.
Exactly. And my mom and a couple and my family sometimes. So,
you made a good point there about how it's equipped you. I can honestly say that one of the greatest strengths that I got out of radio was that ability to ad-lib, because a lot like life and a lot like my faith, there's sometimes you gotta turn on a dial and deal with something.
Well, you get time crunches. So now we have to be used to, okay, I have to get this done by this time, or it's gonna fall apart. And our life and our family is just like that. One of the main things I enjoyed about Fight Club was the fact that you have to be intentional. You also have to have a time frame. You only got a week for certain things. So, it helped set that up for me too. It helps set up for any type of Bible plans that I'm doing. You only have 7 days to get it done, or you got, 60 days or 4 days, depending on what you've got. So it gives you that time crunch to make you make a decision, because sometimes indecisions are even worse than in making a decision.
Oh, very much so. One of the great blessings I have right now, Matt, I'm sitting here thinking about where we came from and where we're at now. Were you 16 at the time that you worked at the radio station, or were you 17?
I was 17.
17. Okay. You went from 17, I was 17, 18, somewhere in there, just being kids, just being high schoolers. I look at us now and, back then we had immaturities and whatnot, and I'm not saying that we're perfect now, but no, we still have our immaturities we deal with. You can ask our wives.
Oh yeah.
But I look now and we both have kids and we have wives. We have good marriages. And we use our faith in a very sharp and a very good, positive way.
Oh, exactly. Well, we have to get our kids ready for that. Because if you just let them go, they're not going to know the truth or the right way to live if you don't set a good example.
See, I'm really happy that that's the case because, when we were in high school and we were doing the radio thing, you want fame, you want to be noticed. But now, as a father and a husband, the only fame we want is when we walk in the door and we got our wives and our kids like, hey, dad's home.
Yeah, that hug is my autograph every day. When
very
he hugs
much.
me, boom, thanks, buddy. That's what I live for now.
That's it, man. And I'm glad God changed that in our lives because, man, we were both all in at different points. And I don't understand now what I saw in it. I really don't. I think about James 4:6. It says, but he gives us more grace. That's why the scripture says God opposes the proud but shows favor to the humble. And I know that you and I have both seen that because now rather than going to a concert on Friday night, we may be out at the grocery store and we'll hear someone say so-and-so is needing food. All of a sudden now we're alert and we're aware, we hear a need and we can address it and we take action. And I'm not saying that to bring pride or recognition on ourselves. What I'm saying is the Gran and the Matt 25 years ago wouldn't have done that.
No. If anything, we would have probably walked or realized someone else will take care of it.
Yeah, that's it.
And now we know we're that someone else.
Yes.
Once again, the time crunch and everything, especially with a family that's in need, time is of the essence. You can't let it go and be like, okay, I'll pray for it. Give me about 4 days or so. Let me pray. Sometimes you don't have time. You need to make that quick prayer and make sure that that's right. But other than that, you take action and you do it. And that's what you have to do.
Oh, very much so. And we've taken food to families. And one thing I've noticed is it gives you an opportunity to really get to know them and pray with them. And I've also noticed it allows you to use those same skills from radio when you're going up to them. This is many times it's someone you've never met.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying, hey, ma'am, we have some food here for you. We'd love to bless you with it. That boldness is a great, great blessing because it's not something I don't think I would have developed in yourself without having that radio background.
The radio gave you a chance to be able to talk to somebody, maybe not with all of the information. My problem was I didn't feel like I could compete with other people because I couldn't quote scripture like a preacher or some of the other elders in the church. So, if I was trying to have a conversation and it started to turn scripture, I could give out some examples and some broad text.
Sure.
But, I'm not going to be able to spit out what, James 2:5. I don't know. But now I don't necessarily need to worry about that as long as I'm the living proof of the scripture. And you can show them what the scripture is by your good deeds, by what you're doing for helping others, loving others. That's the most important part of it. And so, getting over that hurdle, the radio helped with that because now I have a louder voice with it and I feel more comfortable, around people like that and giving out information without any type of trouble or feeling like something's wrong with me because I can't say, the correct scripture.
Matt, tell me something here. What does your faith mean to you?
Well, my faith means life after death. When I leave this world, what I hope to hear is, my good and faithful servant. That's what my faith means to me, that I know as long as I love others, follow the commandments, follow the teachings of Christ, my afterlife is already taken care of. I know what's happening. I know that as long as my wife follows suit with what I'm trying to set up with the family and my son does the same thing, I'll see them. That I'm comfortable with that. I'm not worried like I was before, thinking, man, I shouldn't have probably done that,
True.
And I'll just hide that. There's, you need to repent. You need to, put that out there, ask for forgiveness and it'll be there. That's why he was on the cross. That's what my faith means to me.
If 40-year-old Matt could go back and talk to 17-year-old Matt, what would you tell him?
Well, first of all, I'd probably say buy some Microsoft stock. That would be the first thing. Let's get set up that way.
Okay.
No, I think about that. There's a lot of songs out there about that too. So, you're listening to the music, Mercy Music got a very good one about that. Dear Younger Me. What I would probably do is not necessarily give any information out, but just more of just, hey, it'll be okay. Because the things that I go through shape me to where I am now. So if I take that away, I'm going to be a different man, and it may not be the one that, Christ wants me to be. He put those obstacles in my way for a reason, whether to grow me or cut me down so I have a better perspective. And that's where I look at it. I think I would just more or less say, hey, you'll be okay. Buy stock and and just enjoy Ford, because apparently that's what I'm going to have to drive from now on. But other than that, I would just say, just keep trucking like you're doing, because that's where God wants you in the end.
Some great words from my friend Matt Gaff. Guys, youth can be both a blessing and a curse. But at times, it seems like it's a curse, and we just don't see it at the time. There's a lot of things we experience for the first time in our youth, and we don't totally appreciate them until we get much older. And my friendship with Matt is one of those things. We came from similar backgrounds. We both came from trailer courts. We loved comedy. We love alternative rock. We just had a lot in common. And we both had families that loved us greatly. And to have something like radio just kind of tear a wedge in us that was tough. It's one of those things I wish I could go back and change, obviously. But, to have him back in my life has been such a great, great joy. And, I think about one of the things that Matt had that I didn't have was he had a foundation. And, Psalms 119:9 says, how can a young man keep his way pure? By guarding it according to your word. And I didn't have the word at the time. Now, as a father of my own, my kids have that. That's one area of my life I looked at and I thought, man, this needs to change. So, I try to create opportunities for my son and my daughter to have that foundation, to have the word, so in hopes that their lives are a lot more pure than my were. Now, would you say I had a horrible life? No, I didn't. I had a great life. But I wish I just made some better decisions along the way. There was a time where, when you're 18 and you got a 50,000 watt radio station, alcohol's a huge thing. There was a fridge right there, and it was available. The bar across the way had a staff jacket and just walk in. It's stuff like that. I wish I could go back and I could change. But, youthful passion. 2 Timothy says this, 2:22. So flee youthful passions and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who call the Lord from a pure heart. And honestly, I came to a point like that in my life where I realized that pleasure in the sin in that season, it was gone. And I needed to kind of flee from that. And I wanted to find a better life. And through my job at BTU, I took a job working at the art department at West Noble. And eventually I settled down. I married my bride, Jamie. And it just seemed like just pure joy in my life that I never had before. And Jamie was the one that brought me to Christ. And that right there was the greatest gift anybody could ever done for me, because I never had it before. And I thought, man, where's this been my whole life? Like, I enjoy church. I enjoy my faith. And it's so great to know that broadcasting played a big role in that. But it's also great to see how Matt's faith sustained him through the Army, how it's brought him back, how he's gotten connected now at the church, how he's gotten involved. He's one of the men that if I need anything, all I got to do is say something, and the guy is on it. He's got a great servant's heart, and to call him my brother again, man, honestly, is one of the greatest joys of this past year, and I'm really thankful for him. James chapter 1, 14 through 15 says, but each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it is conceived, gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death. And if you're listening to this podcast, guys, I know there's going to be times in your life where you get a desire put in your heart, and you think, this has nothing to do with my faith. This is just something I want. And don't get me wrong, God wants us to have our joys. He wants us to, really pursue the things we're passionate about. But there comes a time when those passions really take over our time, our talents, our treasures, and they become an obsession. And in many occasions, they actually end up hurting not only ourselves, but others. Too much of a good thing is never a good thing. And in this case, with radio, it was pride. It was, jealousy and all those things that kind of took root. It starts to kind of overtake your life. That's where the trouble comes in. And that's how we kind of need to protect ourselves. When we start getting fame and we start getting attention and start getting pride from these things, the Bible says that pride necessarily isn't a bad thing. It's when we take pride in ourselves and start comparing ourselves to others. That's when it becomes an evil thing. And that's what we got to protect ourselves from. And between Matt and I, that was kind of our thing. And that's something that I've said it time and time again throughout this episode. I wish I could change. But all we can do is move forward and make great, great memories and learn from the past. And that's what I'm encouraging you guys to do today. I want you guys to learn from your past mistakes. Learn from the mistakes of your youth. Now, if you're still making those same mistakes in adulthood, I want you to sit down in a corner and I want you to talk to God about that. I want you to pray and I want you to ask Him to take that out of your life, to help fix that. Because you want to grow from this. You want to become better. You want to become greater. You want to become stronger, not for personal gain, but for Jesus, so that you can be a more equipped servant to do great things in His name. So guys, I want you to think about those things. I want you to look at the areas of your life that, man, maybe I need to change this. I really did this when I was younger and it's really not gotten any better. We're humans. We make these kind of mistakes. We get comfortable and we don't like to grow from them. And I also want to encourage you too, if there's a friend in your life that maybe you haven't connected with in a while, reach out to them. Talk to them. Tell them you love them, tell them you miss them, and just start that building process over again. You never know where it's going to go. In our case, it's going into a podcast. And when I say that, I'm also saying Matt is going to be my new co-host starting with the next episode. I'm really excited about that. So I'm going to be spending more time with Matt. He's going to add a lot of joy, a lot of comedy to the show. And we're also going to kind of take the show in some different routes and through some different venues. So stay tuned for those. Man, it's going to be so much fun. More information has become available. Next on Keep Digging, we're going to talk to John McKee from the Window in Goshen. How he uses his faith to serve others by feeding them. Sometimes the greatest ministry tool that we have available are the simplest of things. And John's case is definitely that. He uses something as simple as a can of food and uses it to connect people to Jesus. Find out how on the next episode of Keep Digging. Don't forget to share the episode on social media, on your Facebook, Twitter, via text if you can. Plus, you can also make sure you go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star rating, write us a review, and be sure to hit subscribe. If you're a Christian and you use your faith in a unique way, have a faith-based job or business, or you're going through a struggle and your faith is really helping you get through it, man, I would love to talk to you. Text me at 260-205-7318 or email me at KeepDiggin today. That's KeepDiggin, D-I-G-G-I-N, no G, today at gmail.com. And that's this episode of Keep Digging, brought to you by our friends at Yeager Funeral Home in Ligonier, Indiana. You can call them at 260-894-4900 and at YeagerFuneralHome.com. Guys, thanks for digging into another episode of the Keep Digging podcast. Join me in 2 weeks for the next episode as we welcome Matt to the show as our new co-host here on the podcast. Man, the joy, the humor, the good times, the great stories, it can't get here soon enough. Guys, until next time, just keep fighting and just keep digging.
family, fight.
There may be only minutes, seconds left of someone's life. Why waste time?
Just keep digging.